Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight on this Wednesday, May 15th.
Defendant Proco Joseph Moreno is charged with 4 counts. Each of them are felony offenses.
A sitting alderman is now facing felony charges, but he's not the only one in trouble with the law.
Trubisky protected for the end zone, touchdown!
Is sports betting on the fast track in Illinois? Governor Pritzker supports it as the General Assembly debates plans to expand gambling in the state. A new report grades Chicago's hospitals on patient safety and accidental death. Find out which hospitals make the grade and which don't.
We don't need aldermen, period, because that's in essence what she's trying to tell us.
Mayor-elect Lightfoot and some aldermen are already in a stare-down over aldermanic power. We tackle that and other headlines in our weekly edition of Spotlight Politics. And we'll finally address the elephant in the room, or actually the elephant in Marshall Fields, in tonight's Ask Jeffrey.
They live and breathe this music.
40 years of swing time with the mighty Chicago Jazz Orchestra. And we have your thoughts about a proposal to stick a $1,000 tax on electric vehicles in Illinois. All of that and more next on Chicago Tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Paris Schutz. Governor Pritzker is planning changes for a troubled state agency. Brandis Friedman has that story and more of what's making news in Chicago Tonight. Brandis.
In Paris, a new report says the Department of Children and Family Services often endangers children who come in contact with the agency, with its focus on keeping troubled families intact. Researchers at Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago say that over the last 5 years, those intact cases where DCFS works to keep children with their biological families, represented 15% of the 41 deaths referenced in an Inspector General report earlier this year. Governor Pritzker requested the analysis 7 weeks ago following several child deaths, and today said that he and acting DCFS Director Mark Smith are committed to implementing the changes suggested in the report.
There's a lot of work to do here. There's no doubt about it. And this isn't, as I said earlier, this is not something that is going to happen overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. What we can do is start with the things that are most urgent and make sure, and I say this about lots of things across state government, that we have short-term, medium-term, and long-term challenges that we have to overcome.
The governor adds that DCFS has reviewed 1,100 cases to ensure proper steps were taken, and he's asking the General Assembly for a $75 million budget increase for DCFS and wants to hire 126 more caseworkers. Neighbors in Garfield Park will be getting greener now that the neighborhood has won a competition for development projects that combat climate change. The Garfield Green Project, led by the Preservation of Affordable Housing nonprofit, will develop the northeast and southeast corners of Kedzie and Fifth Avenues with 77 rental units, 9,000 square feet of rental space, 20,000 square feet of public open space, as well as 12,000 square feet in a public plaza. Developers say the housing units will be a combination of affordable, cooperative, and market rate units. The buildings will run on solar energy, and a majority of its green roofs will grow food and mitigate stormwater. The project will still need city council approval as well as financing and zoning entitlements to complete the land sale from the city to the developers. A local charter school has something to celebrate today, a 100% college acceptance rate for the 10th year in a row.
My name is Jalen Russ, and I will be attending Xavier University of Louisiana.
On Daly Plaza this Sunday afternoon,
my name is Mr. Muhammad, and this fall I will be attending Beloit College.
150 young black men
and I will be attending Eastern Illinois University.
Announce their futures.
Urban Prep was founded with one goal in mind, and that was to increase the number of African American men who are going to and getting through college. And so our laser focus on that one outcome has been pivotal, I think, in allowing for our success.
For the 10th year in a row, 100% of students at Chicago's urban prep academies have been accepted to 4-year colleges and universities. The students themselves say it's the brotherhood they share with each other that helped them achieve this goal.
Being at urban prep, at first, the common student wouldn't think, oh, I'm gonna go to an all-boys school. but I really appreciate my experience I went through and the things that I had to go through to get where I'm at now. And I feel like if I wouldn't have went to Urban Prep, I wouldn't have achieved this goal.
That's Kier Purchase.
This young man leads the way in the network with an admission of 34 colleges, universities he's been accepted to.
You heard it right. He was admitted to 34 schools. He chose to attend Indiana State University. Urban Prep says 90% of students go on to enroll in college and 75% persist.
We're real proud of these guys and the fact that they've been able to have this level of success at Urban Prep, but also across the country, and really defy these stereotypes that, you know, black boys aren't going to be able to get to and through college.
Founder and CEO Tim King says a college-going culture is embedded starting with freshman year, and the school spends a lot of time ensuring students choose the right fit school. King believes that's the best way to drum up success.
Congratulations to the class of 2019.
Altogether, the students were admitted to 162 universities with $10 million in scholarships. Reports say the Trump Organization is blaming Chicago's violence for its declining revenue at the Trump Hotel downtown. In a statement to the Washington Post, the company said, quote, the perceived threat of gun violence has harmed visitation at the destination. But Cranes is reporting that competing luxury hotels in the city have had higher average daily rates than Trump Tower. And in 2018, the city set a new record for tourism, up more than 4% from the year before. The Post also reports revenue is down at other Trump properties, including in Miami, where the organization says fears of Zika virus and hurricanes kept visitors away. As for the weather here, partly cloudy tonight with a low around 56. Then tomorrow in the afternoon, a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise partly sunny with a high near 78. Now, Paris, back to you.
Thanks, Brandis. Chicago will see turnover in its city council starting on Monday. Many of the aldermen, new and old, have promised transparency and to live by an ethical code of conduct. But that body's track record is poor these days on that front. Chicago Tonight's Amanda Vinicky joins us with the latest. Amanda, what kind of track record are we talking about?
Ferris, let's put it this way. Not one, but two sitting aldermen were due to spend part of their day in the criminal courthouse, and not as lawyers, but as defendants.
And remind us who those aldermen are.
Well, in court today was First Ward Alderman Joe Moreno. He was in bond court after being arrested last night, facing 4 felony charges, including insurance fraud, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of justice.
And what is the underlying issue that these counts stem from?
Well, back in January, Moreno called the Chicago emergency number to report that his Audi sedan had been stolen. Prosecutors laid the allegations out in court. Cameras aren't allowed there, but afterward, the assistant state's attorney described what happened for reporters.
Mr. Moreno was very clear that no one else had access to that vehicle. The call operator informed Mr. Moreno that the vehicle would be listed as stolen motor vehicle in the Chicago Police Department database. Mr. Moreno was also advised by the call operator that anyone found driving the vehicle would be arrested.
Moreno then called his insurance company to report his car stolen. Problem was, prosecutors say that was never the case. In fact, they say Moreno had willingly lent his car the night before to a woman with whom he was in a relationship. Prosecutors refer to her as Individual A. Prosecutors say that at his urging, the woman had gone to Moreno's home in Wicker Park.
She was greeted by Mr. Moreno and provided the keys to his vehicle. They then both went to Mr. Moreno's detached garage at his residence, where he turned over the motor vehicle to Individual A and then saw her off. Mr. Moreno was fully aware they provided the motor vehicle to Individual A.
In fact, the very night that Moreno reported his car stolen, he allegedly was texting the woman about meeting up for dinner. Police continued to consider his car stolen through January. Investigators say State Farm was ready to cut him a check for $30,000 for the loss of his vehicle. But police pulled the woman over in early February and brought her in for driving a stolen car. That's when things began to unravel. She had his keys. She had texts showing communication with Moreno, despite his later saying he'd had trouble getting in touch with her. In interviews at the time, Moreno called it a misunderstanding and said he'd been trying to help out a single mom.
Which was diametrically opposed to the claims he made to the OEMC call operator and to his insurance carrier.
And what is Moreno or the Moreno legal team's response to these charges?
Well, it was a bond hearing today, and during it, a judge said that at best, Moreno had exercised terrible judgment. Moreno was released on his own recognizance, a result that his attorney was happy with.
All I want to say is I believe the appropriate bond was set. It is an I bond. He has strong ties to the community. He has no prior offenses. He should be getting out soon, as we anticipated, and we look forward to our day in court.
And during a hearing, that attorney called Moreno a public and civic gladiator, and he asked that the judge not treat his client any differently because he is an elected official.
He'll only be in the ring for a couple more days.
Yeah, because on Monday, Moreno, that is, he had ran for re-election, but he lost to Daniel Espada, who will be sworn into the office on Monday.
Okay, so at the top we said there are 2 aldermen in court today. Who is the other one?
Well, a bench trial was supposed to begin today for Alderman Ricardo Munoz. He's charged with misdemeanor domestic battery for allegedly beating his wife on New Year's. That trial is now delayed. Munoz also not running for re-election.
And as we know, these are not the only 2 aldermen in trouble with the law right now. Who else?
No, they are not. You have, of course, their Alderman Ed Burke. He will remain on the city council despite a criminal complaint alleging attempted extortion. He has not actually been indicted, though. Prosecutors have until June 7th. For that, a source tells WTTW Burke will not be indicted before the Memorial Day weekend. Then there's Alderman Danny Solis, who secretly helped the FBI record Burke's dealings. He has not been charged, but was under FBI investigation. He did not run for a re-election. Finally, former Alderman Willie Cochran. He actually had to give up his seat about 2 months ago when he pleaded guilty to a felony count of wire fraud. In Paris, come Monday, the city council is going to have a dozen new members.
These are possibly cautionary tales for those new members.
Whew, yeah.
Amanda, thank you so much. And now to Carol Marine and whether sports betting is a slam dunk in Illinois. Carol.
Paris, last year the Supreme Court struck down a law that banned sports betting outside of the state of Nevada. As a result, legal sports betting has quickly spread. 9 states now have it. Many others are now considering it. One of those states is our own, Illinois. Governor J.B. Pritzker hopes to raise some $200 million in revenue from licenses and fees related to sports betting for this year's budget. But lawmakers in Springfield have yet to settle on a plan. And with so many competing gambling interests, is there any plan that will satisfy them all? Here now to talk what legalized sports betting could mean for Illinois, Paul Gaynor. He is an attorney and lobbyist who represents Chicago-based Rush Street Gaming, which operates the Rivers Casino in Des Plaines. Prior to that, he was the chief of public interest division of the Illinois Attorney General's Lisa Madigan's office for 10 years. Also joining us, Elizabeth Thielen. She is senior director of NICASA, a not-for-profit that provides behavioral health services. Thielen has a master's degree in clinical psychology and is a licensed professional counselor. Welcome, both of you, to Chicago tonight. So, Paul Gaynor, let's start with you. As someone who's down in Springfield lobbying on this issue, what's the state of play here? Where are we?
Well, I think one needs to hesitate calling anything a slam dunk in Springfield. So there's a lot of negotiations going on, a lot of different proposals. As you alluded to, the governor and the state that desperately needs to raise the revenue, projected $200 million. But one of the things my client is very concerned about is that it be done while maintaining the integrity of gaming. And so we have proposed a regulatory waiting period for entities that have been operating outside of the law in the meantime to try to make sure that it's a competitive market, it's done safely, and the integrity of gaming is maintained while any proposal is put forth.
But at the same time, your client also doesn't want the competition of new casinos, correct?
That's not necessarily correct. What we want is fair competition. So by way of example, in New Jersey, what happened, because the daily fantasy sports companies were operating illegally, they captured 80% of the market. So when it became legal, they were able to benefit from their ill-gotten gains. That's why we're concerned that with the $200 million projection, if certain entities are given 80% of the market based upon their ill-gotten gains, then the projected $200 million probably won't be realized.
But putting fantasy aside, we're talking about if there are additional casinos like Rivers Casino, that's a threat to Rivers as well, is it not?
Well, we feel good about our ability to compete in a fair and open, transparent market.
So, Elizabeth, from your standpoint and from professionals like yourself, are you part of the conversation of what this new gambling legislation should look like?
We absolutely need to be, because we work with that small percentage of people who, when they gamble, they develop a problem. And we know that that's about 2%. And so in Illinois, that can be upwards of 240,000 Illinoisans with a gambling disorder. And when you expand gambling and you open up a new form of it, you have some people who might be at risk of developing a gambling problem. We know there's a number of groups that are already at greater risk: seniors, our military and veterans. And there are two groups that I'm particularly concerned about with regards to sports betting, and that's young adults and athletes. So it's interesting that athletes have a lower risk of substance use, but they have a higher risk of gambling problems.
So if there is more gambling or more venues for gambling, does that mean, based on your research, there are more people addicted to gambling, or not necessarily so?
There is definitely a good potential for additional problem gamblers to come about as a result of expanded gambling. And when we look at the social costs of that, we've got bankruptcy rates, divorce, we've got crime, we even have suicide. And so there's an estimated $218 million annually of social costs related to problem gambling in Illinois.
So are you part of this conversation or not?
I am part of the conversation. We need to be part of the conversation. I will say that the governor signed a proclamation statewide naming March Problem Gambling Awareness Month. This tells us that there is concern and there's a commitment to collaborating and trying to figure out a plan that would lead to some responsible policy making.
So Paul, going back to the projections, is $200 million for licensing and fees in new revenue, is that a realistic number?
It appears to be, but again, it depends on whether the value of those licenses and fees, whether it's an open and competitive market to make it worth people's while to pay those fees for the privilege of the license, because a license is a privilege, it's not a right, and it's really important that we maintain that.
So is the current state of the debate on gambling just focused on more sports betting, or is it racetracks? Is it slots? What is it?
It's sports wagering, which the United States Supreme Court said was legal. And that's why different states have all these initiatives to try to capture now that it's a legal market. But there's you mentioned a lot of different interest holders that are interested in sports wagering, which again gets back to the difficulty in Springfield. You have a lot of experience down there too.
Because the tracks don't want.
It's a little
bit.
They
They want slots in the.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
It's not easy to bring everybody together. There are a lot of different interest holders here, and to satisfy everybody, it's a challenge.
Elizabeth, are therapists like yourself opposed to gambling?
No, actually, we're neutral on gambling. We know that most people who gamble are able to do so without adverse consequences. Our concerns lay with the people who have a gambling problem. And as I mentioned, the costs of gambling problems can be astounding, up through loss of life. And so it's important that any legislation related to expanding gambling includes dedicated funding for prevention, for treatment, for research to determine what impact is the expansion having on gambling in the community.
Do you have a number that you need to be reached in this legislation?
Well, when you look at about 250,000 Illinoisans having a gambling disorder, and you look at there's 9 treatment providers currently available and ready to help problem gamblers, there is not capacity currently to help all those people if they come for help. And so we absolutely need to look at a percentage of the profit. That's the only responsible way to pass legislation, is that a percentage of the profit does go to prevention and treatment.
Do you have a percentage in mind?
I do not, and I think that there's a lot of conversation that would need to go into what that would look like.
So Paul, one of the things that's been proposed is that the gambling entities be taxed 20 to 50%. Some people say that's just not going to happen. At Rivers Casino, for instance, your client isn't going to go for something like that.
Well, we've paid $1.6 billion of tax revenue to the state. We don't have a problem doing that. The challenge for the state is finding that sweet spot, that the tax isn't so high that people remain in the black market and continue to gamble in the black market, and you don't bring them over to legalized gambling. So we need to be careful about what that rate is, and it appears that what's being proposed now is on the higher side.
Where does online gambling fit into this picture?
There's online gambling as part of the discussion. So there's a proposal to, in the first instance, to have it connected to the existing land-based casinos, and also discussions about, in addition, having online gambling as well.
And Elizabeth, people can self-report and have themselves barred from a casino.
Correct.
Little difficult to bar yourself from your computer terminal. What does a therapist like yourself do with that?
That's a real problem. We've had people who've had years and even decades of sobriety from gambling, and part of their program was to be self-excluded from the casinos. And then other forms of gambling emerge in their community, and there are not self-exclusion options available for them for that. So that's a real significant barrier to people who have already come to recovery from gambling. So self-exclusion does need to be part of the equation. Online gambling, there's also some concerns about preventing underage play. We know that young adults have twice the rate of problem gambling that adults do. And it's much more difficult to prevent underage play, and also to have protections in place for players when it's an online versus in a face-to-face venue.
So Paul, is this, like so many things in Springfield, at the end of the session going to go right down and crash into the deadline for the end of the session?
Well, we're talking about gaming, and I'm certainly not going to bet on the outcome of what's going to happen in Springfield. But I do want to say, because Elizabeth and I were talking about this, and Illinois has to have a robust regulatory environment to protect the folks that Elizabeth is talking about.
Well, we'll see. We'll see in the next, how many days? 14, 15 days? Paul Gaynor, Elizabeth Thielen, thank you very much for joining us. Much more on Chicago Tonight. Stay with us.
Still to come on Chicago Tonight. Aldermen react to Mayor-elect Lightfoot trying to corral their power. That and more in our weekly edition of Spotlight Politics. Jeffrey Bayer solves a family photo mystery about a long-lost State Street hotspot. Getting into the swing of things with the big band sound of the Chicago Jazz Orchestra. And in viewer feedback, your thoughts about making the fee to register an electric car in Illinois 60 times higher than is currently charged. But first, how safe are Chicago hospitals? A new report says some of them are not making the grade when it comes to patient safety and preventable death. This report was done by a nonprofit watchdog called the Leapfrog Group, and it shines a light on the dangers inherent in some of the area's safety net hospitals that lack the resources that other hospitals have. And joining us to discuss this report are Dr. Nikila Javadi, Chief Clinical Officer at the Loretto Hospital on Chicago's West Side. The hospital was one of 5 that received a D grade for patient safety. And Judy Hearn, Director of Member Initiatives for Midwest Business Group on Health, which serves as the Illinois Regional Leader for the Leapfrog Group. Welcome, both of you, to Chicago Tonight.
Thank you for having us.
First, Ms. Hearn, what is the purpose of this report?
Well, the hospital safety grade is intended to give consumers information about selecting hospitals when they're considering care for themselves and their family members.
And it issues grades from A to F on patient safety. Dr. Javadi,
Yes.
Loretto, as we mentioned at the top, received a D grade. What is your reaction to that?
We acknowledge that we did receive a D grade, but we would like to tell the background story of why us and other safety net hospitals received that grade. You know, there are multiple reasons why, and we thank you for having us on, for letting us tell you about it. Safety net hospitals do not have the resources that other hospitals have, and the Leapfrog score does not take that into account. It does not take that fact into account that sometimes our patient numbers are too low to be able to even report, even if we would like to report some of the things that we do. It doesn't take our strengths into account. For example, Loretto Hospital has a very robust behavioral health program that is not reflected in our Leapfrog score. Safety net hospitals do not have the resources that other hospitals have. We acknowledge that we did get a D, but we have made great improvements despite our financial status, and we know that we will improve.
Ms. Hearn, in practical terms, what does a D grade mean for that hospital?
Well, the hospital safety grades take into account 28 different safety measures, and they're calculated with an algorithm. Someone from the Leapfrog group would be better able to describe how a particular hospital would receive a grade.
Well, some of the things on that report, that there are accidental deaths that occur in greater frequency at some of these low-grade hospitals. I read that some problems occur when a patient is having surgery performed on them and something gets stuck in their body. So can you just explain sort of the things that lead to the problems?
Well, anything that is considered preventable, whether it's a medical error, a medication error, an infection, or an injury within the inpatient setting, all of those safety measures are taken into account to provide the letter grade.
And Dr. Javadi, you said that some of the information was incomplete. Yeah. Do you acknowledge that Loretto can improve its score?
We've actually already acknowledged that. Our board, as soon as we realized that there was a problem of any sort with our quality department, decided to bring all new management on board. We have a minority C-suite who's dedicated to serving the Austin community because we want to keep our doors open. The safety net hospitals need to stay open for the community. Our board recognized that we have made great improvements. One part about the Leapfrog score is the fact that it reflects from 2015 to 2018. Despite the fact that it says spring 2019, when you look at the website, that's not the case. It's 3 years behind. So
you've improved since they did the survey here. Ms. Hearn, is this a problem inherent in safety net hospitals, and are hospitals like Rush and Northwestern and U of C, do they typically do better?
Not necessarily. All hospitals are judged on their own, and a lot of the data comes from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. So even some hospitals that don't report to the Leapfrog Group survey do receive a letter grade.
And let's take a look at some of the hospitals in Chicago that did receive a D grade. So there's Loretto, there's Weiss, there's Stroger, Jackson Park, Mount Sinai. These are all safety net hospitals.
Correct.
So do you see a correlation here?
I do see a correlation. Our financial straits are dire. The MCOs are not paying us for the care that we've already provided. They take 154 days to pay us for care that we have already provided. There's bills currently in the Illinois Senate and House to state that they should give us our money within 7 days for care we have provided, and that would help us improve. We have to be able to level the playing field. We need to give our community the same resources as anybody else. At Loretto, we've made those strides internally using money we do not have. We've had to have layoffs. We've had to take 10% pay cuts just to make sure that our clinical bedside care is not affected. Everybody else is sacrificing for that.
Ms. Hearn, we mentioned hospitals like Rush and Northwestern. They received a B grade in this report. What does a B grade mean to patients who are seeking care at those hospitals?
Well, if all hospitals received an A grade, we would save 50,000 lives. So the scores of hospitals that don't do as well may have higher mortality rates. So those are some of the things patients may want to consider when they're choosing medical care, if they have that option.
And other things that lead to accidental death, infections. I was reading bed sores, which could lead to infections, prescribing the wrong drugs. Do you see these problems at Loretto Hospital?
We used to a certain extent, partly because of the way that, as they said, most of the data comes from CMS. So it's the way that they pick that data up. They've changed their metrics, and we've improved in everything. And like we said, we've had much process improvement, and we use Leapfrog as a benchmark. We're not saying that we don't. We use all of it as a benchmark. We use CMS, we use our internal metrics, we want to be transparent with the community, but we also want them to understand that it doesn't mean that a hospital is not safe. It is safe.
Ms. Hearn, do you think that hospitals like Loretto should use this as a benchmark, as Dr. Javadi said, and welcome this kind of scrutiny?
I think it's important that the grades provide a marketing incentive to seek improvement, and with limited resources, focus on those areas that really need improvement.
And Dr. Javadi, you say that the score has improved since the time they took information,
Correct.
although in 2016, Loretto got an A grade. So what happened
Correct.
between then and now?
Our financial situation,
Yes, you did mention that.
I do have to be clear about that. It is our financial situation. It is also the fact that the leapfrog metrics themselves changed.
So Medicaid was reimbursing you in better rates back in 2016?
Absolutely, they were. Before the MCOs were fully on board, yes, they were. But also the fact that the metrics have changed. They concentrate more on things that we don't actually provide at this point of time.
Ms. Hearn, how is this data gathered? Dr. Javadi said a lot of it is a patient survey.
It's not actually a patient survey. The hospitals can report through an online survey mechanism to the Leapfrog group, and that goes out once a year, so they can do that reporting. And then the rest of the data comes from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid.
All right, we'll have to keep our eyes on this report next year and years after. Dr. Nikila Javadi and Judy Hearn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can find the link to the report cards for Chicago's hospital on our website. And we're back with more right after this.
Don't miss one of our stories. Get them all delivered to your desktop or mobile device with a subscription to the WTTW News Daily Briefing. Go to WTTW.com/dailybriefing and sign up.
First major showdown on the subject of aldermanic power. Meanwhile, outgoing Mayor Rahm Emanuel continues to try and burnish his legacy as lawmakers in Springfield take the big issues of the budget, income tax, and legalized pot down to the wire. Joining us to wade through these issues and more is our Spotlight Politics team of Amanda Vinicki and Carol Marine, who were doing a little dance to that beautiful doo-wop music we heard.
Music. It was so nice.
Well, Carol, today a ProPublica investigation shed light on city council committees and how they get all this money, they have all these jobs, and aldermen who are in charge of these committees don't really spend money on what they're supposed to. What does this mean for the new city council?
Well, let's just put it this way. It was written by Mick Dumke, a superb investigative reporter. 13 pages of small print. For new incoming aldermen, this is a kind of a tutorial, a bombshell of details. For old veteran aldermen, it wasn't a good day in terms of the kinds of fiefdoms they're trying to preserve with no transparency to speak of. And when you get to the kahuna of committees, that's Ed Burke's Finance Committee, what we learned from Mick Dumke was it's budgeted for more than $2 million as a committee, and it's spent $3.3 million. I mean, this is something that screams, let's take a look.
And we've looked into the Finance Committee at Chicago tonight. We have records showing that last year there were 81 employees, full or part-time, on the Finance Committee, just on that one committee. Amanda Vinicki, all this comes out as aldermen are jockeying to be heads of these committees. What's the latest on that?
Well, and this shows why you want to be head of one of these committees, because you have a whole lot of power at your fingertips, the ability to hire and fire whoever you want, because these are political hires. It's not subject to the regular rules that somebody would have to undergo to get a position with the seat of government. And so this really is, to me, something that I think the sort of story that is shocking to residents and is shocking to any sort of newcomer. Certainly, Lori Lightfoot isn't a total newcomer. She had served in various roles throughout the years, but this is the sort of thing when she promises cleanup, this is the sort of thing that you're talking about, and you could really do some major cleanup there. Perhaps these individuals are all necessary to carry out the work that the committees need to do, but we don't know that. It is not allocated as such. That is not borne out necessarily by the facts.
Cheryl, is it time to get rid of some of these committees?
Yes.
Or all of them?
Yeah, I don't know about all of them, but here's the deal. The aldermen have worked very hard to make sure that the Inspector General can't look at their committees. One of the things that Scott Wagusback was asked, and his name is most prominently mentioned as a potential Finance Committee chair, is what would he do? And one of the things he said, if he was appointed, he would open the books to Joe Ferguson without all of this business of legislating it. Like, come on in and let's take a look. I think every one of those aldermen should. They don't want to, but they need to.
It is a sort of hypocrisy that, again, makes people very distrustful of their elected officials and of government, and that hurts government overall. Particularly, you have, as both the city, Lightfoot is going to have to make some very difficult financial decisions, as she has just been talking about really today and yesterday, also on the state level. And those are the types of things that make taxpayers say, hey, wait, why am I giving you my money? You don't even know where it's going. I can't tell what you're doing with it. And those are the sort of things that you have to clean up if you're going to have that expectation.
As this happens, Lightfoot is taking a stab at reducing the power of aldermen. What we have learned about this proposed executive order on aldermanic prerogative, will that make a real dent in some of the corrupt pay-to-play practices that we've come to be used to?
Not if it doesn't include zoning. And right now it doesn't look like it includes zoning. Zoning is winning the lottery. You figure out in your ward what business gets to locate in your ward and you zone for that. And lo and behold, it's just a miracle, but you seem to get campaign contributions from those businesses either before or after. So zoning is where the real money and the real power is, and without a change in that, I don't think that it radically reforms it.
And anecdotally, certainly I've heard stories of someone that says they want to put an addition on their house, and the alderman says no, insinuating that they need to get out their checkbook and show some generosity before the alderman is going to acquiesce on that zoning decision. Amanda, let's talk about some of the transition team, or the members coming onto the Lightfoot administration. What does this say about her administration? Because she's putting out some of these names today.
You know, she has had, for example, her chief of staff will be the chief of staff, Maurice Clausen, who has been at the helm right now of her transition. She's keeping on her press team. Some of these people are familiar players. For example, her head of finance is going to be somebody who has been head of CPS finance. And so certainly people that know the budget, and yet she also, I believe, has indicated, not said for sure who she will be keeping on from the Emanuel administration, but there are hints that it could be Jamie Rhee with aviation. So she's bringing in some people that are perhaps change agents, people to whom she believes will be loyal to her, and we're really going to have to wait and see how these people function in those capacities.
But a cautionary word is, when you start taking people from the campaign and putting them in government, they think in campaign mode, and that can be a mistake. And it has been in other administrations, including Obama was faulted for this to a large degree. So it is something...
Trying to be more cheerleader for their candidate than enacting policy on behalf of the city.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Mayor Emanuel is trying to be a cheerleader for his 8 years in office, saying that Chicago got its swagger back. Meanwhile, members of the Lightfoot transition team say the budget deficit is actually way worse than what he's saying. Where's the truth here?
I wish I knew, but I'll tell you this. Every incoming new mayor and governor always comes before the cameras and goes, my God, I didn't know it was this bad. And you want to say, how come you didn't know? You were campaigning as though you were an expert on some of the fixes that are required to restore government to sanity. So the truth is somewhere in between there, as is the truth about Rahm Emanuel's 8 years of miracle working, because there have been some problems with that as well. So each is writing a narrative in behalf of what they think they need to get done.
And maybe to set expectations low, to say, well, you don't like the tax hikes or fee hikes I'm proposing, blame your predecessor.
Not my fault, hands off.
Yeah. Right. Amanda, in Springfield, it looks like Pritzker's getting some pushback on his signature legislative items, the progressive income tax and pot legalization. Are they in trouble?
It was never going to be easy. These are major asks. And so, yes, I mean, they are on the precipice of trouble. Is that to say that they're not going to pass? Certainly not. while it is coming down somewhat to the wire, the end of session is May 31st. At the same time, that is a long ways away in Springfield timelines. And so there's plenty of time for this still to be negotiated, but we need to watch and see. Just because Pritzker wants it to happen doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to. He's got to start convincing and twisting some arms.
Every year we see this, where all these legislative items just get resolved at the very last second. Is there some kind of political advantage to certain people, like the House Speaker, to letting these things just play out to the very end?
Yes, and part of it is, Amanda is expert at this, it's called a shell bill. People vote on something they've never read and hasn't been reduced into actual language, and then we go, my God, did you pass that? So yes, there are advantages. The key to this session, 2 words: Mike Madigan.
Every session.
Mike Madigan, every session, and this one, even though there's a supermajority in both chambers, there are legislators who are loath to pass this kind of tax reform and are frightened of it.
They're frightened of it. Perhaps they should be, because again, taxpayers are getting it from all sides in terms of politicians looking to them to bring in more money for, frankly, fiscal mismanagement by politicians prior. And so part of the allure of Mike Madigan is that he has been able to stay on in that position for so long. So legislators that are frightened look to him for advice.
Well, we look to you both for our political insight. Amanda Vinicky, Carol Marine, thank you very much. And up next, Jeffrey Bayer is here to talk about the elephant in the room in tonight's Ask Jeffrey.
Ask Jeffrey is made possible in part by BMO Harris Bank.
What? Oh no. I have suspicious activity on my debit card. Now what?
You know. Oh, sorry. With BMO Harris, you can just freeze your card right from your phone.
Wow, really?
Yeah. You can unfreeze it too.
How many roommates do you have?
That feeling you get when a bank puts security at your fingertips. That's the BMO effect.
A viewer's photo of her mother at a glamorous restaurant in 1940s Chicago left her wondering where that photo was taken. Jeffrey Bayer is here with a look back at a Polynesian palace on State Street in tonight's Ask Jeffrey. Jeffrey, tell us more about this.
Oh, I love these kind of family questions that we get. These are among our favorites. So let's start out by taking a look at the photograph that our viewer sent in. So here's Paula's mom, Rosemary Secondino, enjoying a night out with her friends. She's second from the left, or maybe Secondino from the left.
It's Italian for second.
So you got to look closely at this photo. You can't see too much of the restaurant, but our super sleuth producer, Erica Gunderson, spotted 2 distinctive details to start her investigation. First, of course, the swirling ornament and palm trees. That's easy. But secondly, look at the table. As a cocktail aficionado, Erica spotted what looked like daiquiris on the table. So put those 2 things together, swirling tropical ornament and daiquiris, and you get a tiki bar, which was a kind of restaurant that was popular after World War II when soldiers came back from the Pacific. So Erica, went online and started searching photos of tiki bars in the 1940s, and she just about jumped out of her chair when she saw this photo. It looks like the exact match. This was the decor in a restaurant at 222 North State Street that operated under 2 different owners and 2 different names during the 1940s. First one was in 1941. It opened as the Rumba Casino, a splashy Latin-themed club that didn't last very long. Just a year later, in 1942, Mayor Edward Kelly toured a few downtown taverns incognito, including the Rumba. He found them filled with drunk, underage sailors, who'd have thought? And so all of their licenses were revoked and the bars were closed.
So that's the sad, unfortunate end of the Rumba Casino. What happened to the other restaurant?
Well, then 2 years later, just 2 years later, a different restaurant owner did some minor redecorating. It kind of looks like he gave it a bit of a paint job there, and he reopened the joint as the Shangri-La, which billed itself as the world's most romantic restaurant. It quickly became a hot spot, famous for its Cantonese cuisine, which was actually pretty exotic fare back then. The restaurant sometimes even published recipes for Cantonese dishes like those they served at Shangri-La in the Chicago Tribune, and we actually have a couple of those recipes on our website for folks.
Good, I need some new recipes. All right, so there's definitely no more Shangri-La at that location. What happened?
Well, the Shangri-La remained popular until 1968 when it was closed by the IRS for refusing to turn over or failing to turn over income taxes withheld from a year's worth of employees' checks. After that, it became an adult movie house. You might remember that State Street was not such a great street at one point, and the building was then demolished in 1981, and a hotel was built on the site in 1991.
Okay, so what's your next letter?
All right, let's look at this next letter right here. It says, the next question, you mean?
Next question,
Next question, okay, so
Don't
here it
they
is.
write letters to you?
They do. We get letters, we get
Postmarked?
letters.
Okay.
So anyway, here it is. When I Google elephant by Marshall Fields, a picture of a large elephant sculpture appears on the side of the store. What was the event?
All right, first I have a question for that viewer. Why do you Google elephant by Marshall Fields?
Yeah, who knows why you would Google that, but this is the picture our viewer found.
Wow.
In any event, you can just make out there's a sign in the trunk of the elephant there if you look closely, and you can see that this plastic pachyderm is promoting something called Fash Bash. That was a fashion show at Marshall Fields, which ran annually from 1999 to 2013. It was a benefit for the Art Institute of Chicago. So easy to answer, not much of a story there. But again, Erica Gunderson, our super sleuth producer, in the course of researching this, she came across the story of a live elephant at Marshall Fields, and you're going to see a picture of that in just a moment. It was a marketing stunt in 1944 to promote this children's book, which is called The Elegant Elephant by Russell McCracken. The book told the story of Eddie, a baby elephant who wanted to become elegant enough to join the circus. So the publishers, here we go, brought not a baby elephant, but this elephant, a 7-foot-tall, 3,000-pound, 12-year-old elephant named Judy, into the department store to, quote, sign autographs as a promotion for 2 days.
Judy looks so happy there. Where do you get, in a pinch, when you need an elephant,
Yeah.
where do you go?
Yeah, on short notice, right? Well, Judy was borrowed from a Sheboygan, Wisconsin circus. She was hoisted to Marshall Field's third-floor book department via the freight elevator, and there she performed tricks and signed books with a hand stamp held in her trunk. But after the party, Judy was not so elegant. She refused to re-enter the freight elevator to go to her overnight accommodations. Her handlers tried to back her into the elevator, but that didn't work so well either. She stomped away from the freight elevator, knocking down books and rugs in her path. In desperation, her handlers called Brookfield Zoo for advice, and they suggested that maybe Judy would be willing to walk down a ramp. So carpenters hastily constructed a 3-story ramp that allowed Judy to walk down to the first floor. And Marshall Fields canceled the rest of the event. Now, actually, this episode inspired a follow-up book about Eddie's experiences at Marshall Fields called Eddie Elephant Has a Party. And that's this book right here. And I'm going to show you the book one more time because as a little side note, Eddie the Elephant let me try to open this here and see if folks can see this, had these cardboard cutout figures. Can you see that there in the back? These sort of cardboard cutouts. These books were called slotties. You would pop these cardboard cutouts out and you could build a little elephant toy, and that was kind of a bonus of having one of these books. Slotty books enjoyed a brief popularity back in the 1940s. We don't see them so much anymore.
Well, it sounds like Judy had an elephant-sized ego.
Yeah, really.
There at Marshall Fields.
A prima donna.
A real elephant prima donna,
Yeah.
Judy. Well, rest in peace, because I assume she's no longer around.
I would assume, yeah.
All
I don't
right.
know how long elephants live, but
maybe they live very long. I don't know.
They have
but
long memories. You know that.
and long trunks. All right, Jeffrey, thank you very much. And if you'd like to buy or try out one of those Shangri-La recipes that Jeffrey talked about, head over to our website where we've posted a couple. And while you're there, send in your own family photo mystery or questions to Jeffrey Baer. A Chicago band started swinging back when Jimmy Carter was in the White House and Michael Bilandic was in City Hall. If you like brassy big band music, you may know, or you should get to know, the Chicago Jazz Orchestra. We spoke with one of the founders and a charter member about 40 years of bringing a fresh approach to timeless music. Here's Brandis Friedman with that story.
12 of the area's premier horn players, plus an acclaimed rhythm section, add up to Chicago's oldest professional jazz orchestra. Under their former name, they played opening night of the first annual Chicago Jazz Festival in 1979.
The Chicago Jazz Orchestra is a great institution in Chicago. It's held together by love and talent. But what they do is bring forth the tradition of Count Basie and Duke Ellington in a very living, vital, spontaneous way. When you listen to the CJO, you are not hearing some music of the past. You're hearing music that sounds as if the ink were still wet on the page.
I always had the idea of developing it into the best big band in Chicago and rivaling other great orchestras across the country and the world. We do play repertoire music, but we try to keep it fresh and keep it living. And so we love to have the players create their own solos as opposed to the recorded solos.
I play jazz trumpet. I'm the only charter member of this band at this point. It's always a pleasure because the level is really high and it's always inspirational. So I think that's collectively why we all do it, is to challenge each other and play at the highest level possible.
From big band to bebop to ballads, the CJO has brought a complexity of sound since forming on campus at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Now, they're in the middle of their 40th season.
Get out of town before it's too late, my love.
They often share the spotlight with local singers, in this case, Paul Marinaro.
Why wish me harm?
They don't stay stagnant. They're always new soloists, young and old. That keeps it fresh. I have never once heard the Chicago Jazz Orchestra sound stale or as if it's revisiting the past. It sounds new every time they hit.
Well, it's great to have a band where all I have to do is count off the tempo and it goes. I can't say enough about the great musicians of this orchestra. We try to get the cream of the crop, and we've been fairly successful at that, I think.
Various members have played with Count Basie, Aretha Franklin, Tito Puente, and Frank Sinatra. Many of them front their own bands, but they usually come back to the CJO.
We sort of model ourselves after what you'd say the great civic symphony orchestras would be, where they play music of the masters and the repertoire and keep that going, yet they also play music of contemporary composers and living composers.
Let me tell you, they're not doing it for financial compensation. There's not a lot of it there. These guys can make money doing a lot of other things. But it's the sound of the CJO, that big, thick, rich, robust sound that is thrilling to hear. And in jazz, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing more exciting than that.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman.
And this Saturday night, the Chicago Jazz Orchestra performs a 40th anniversary celebration concert with some special guests. The show will be at the Studebaker Theater in the Fine Arts Building. Find out more on our website. Before we go, some viewer feedback. We heard from a lot of you on both sides of the debate over proposals to change electric car owners, charge electric car owners a $1,000 fee since they don't pay the gas tax, which helps maintain Illinois roads. They've been getting such a great deal so far with just a $17.50 yearly registration fee and no fuel tax. $1,000 a year is extortion. Yes, this would push me over the edge to move out of state along with my small business, which employs 30 people. Electric cars use the same roads as everyone else. Why shouldn't they pay their fair share? Think, people owning gasoline-powered cars pay that much in fuel taxes every year. Electric cars are just playthings of the rich. They are far from practical, and for reasons the hypesters don't let on, they have severely limited mileage. I have a smart electric vehicle, and I am not rich. The car is a great city car, small, efficient, and I don't travel all that much. It is not my toy. I would propose a sliding scale for the weight of the car and the mileage driven. I'm not opposed to paying my fair share. And as always, we appreciate hearing from you. Join the discussion on Facebook and Twitter, or post your comments on our website. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also watch via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. As the city says goodbye to its current mayor, it's time to look ahead to the new one, a preview of what to expect when Lori Lightfoot takes office. And this man tells you where and especially when to see the area's most glorious wildflowers. We leave you tonight with an encore from the Chicago Jazz Orchestra. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. I thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.